Week 11 of the fantasy football season. Here's the top 12 kickers I'm ranking this week. Number 1, Cameron Dicker of the Los Angeles Chargers. Cameron Dicker, another great season it's been for him, but last week he actually did miss a field goal, which is a rarity where he's one of the more accurate kickers of all time, is Cameron Dicker. So this week a good matchup at the Jacksonville Jaguars. Their defense can't stop anyone, and this is one of the better offenses in the league is the Chargers. So I think Dicker will have many opportunities. Number 2, Brandon Aubrey of the Dallas Cowboys. So this week, good matchup, indoor game, always a plus. For Brandon Aubrey, it doesn't matter where he kicks. 55, 60 yards is easy for him. Even though the last couple weeks, he's failed to reach double-digit fantasy points. But this Cowboy team, coming off a bye week, making some trades at the trade deadline, I think they're going to come in a little loose in this ball game at Vegas, and opportunities will be there for Brandon Aubrey. And obviously, this is one of the more high-powered offenses in the league as well. Number 3, Chris Boswell of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Even last week as well, Chris Boswell, he missed a field goal in that ball game in Los Angeles, which isn't a thing we see much from him. So this week, a good matchup versus Cincinnati coming in. This is going to be a high-scoring game. We saw a few weeks ago where these two teams on a Thursday night went up and down the field against each other. And Chris Boswell, one of the more accurate kickers of all time, at 50-plus yards isn't a problem for him as well. Number 4, Eddie Pinheiro with the San Francisco 49ers. So Pinheiro last week, it was a down game for him. But this week, a good matchup at the Arizona Cardinals. They're bend but don't break type of defense at times where field goal opportunities are going to be there. And Pinheiro, a majority of the games this season, he's had double-digit fantasy points. So last week, after a bad game, I think it was just a little bit fluky, and it was a tough matchup versus the Rams. And I think he'll bounce back this week versus the Cardinals. Number 5, Chase McLaughlin of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So this week a matchup at Buffalo could be a tough place to kick, obviously, with the weather this time of year could get nasty, and obviously could be even snow for all we know going into this week's ball game. But McLaughlin, he's got a big boot. 50, 55 yards isn't a problem for him. And also as well, when you're on a high-powered offense and a team that gets into the red zone a lot, obviously you're going to get your opportunities. So this week at Buffalo, after a down game last week, I think he bounces back and gets more chances. Number 6, Will Richard of the Minnesota Vikings. So maybe I'm higher on Richard than consensus, but I think he's one of the better kickers in the league is Will Richard. It's another home game, which is indoors. And also as well, this Minnesota offense has stalled out a lot this season. So Richard, he's even had 2 kicks this season off the camera. That's how high and far he's kicking the football. So like I said, he's got unlimited range, and he's in an offense that stalls out and doesn't score a lot of touchdowns most weeks. So this week in a matchup versus the Bears, where they give up a lot of yards and do give up a lot of points, I think Richard could go out there, have a good performance this week. Number 7, Tyler Loop of the Baltimore Ravens. So this Raven offense, it's back now to being a high-powered offense. We've seen it the last few games now that Lamar Jackson's back in the lineup. And this week at Cleveland, a bend but don't break defense most times. With their underrated defense is this Cleveland team. I think Tyler Loop might have to settle for some field goals. And he's been solid in his rookie season. I'm not saying he's a Justin Tucker after what he did for Baltimore a decade plus, but definitely someone who could go out there and put the football through the uprights. Number 8, Jason Myers of the Seattle Seahawks. It's been a solid season for Jason Myers. This Seahawk team, the last 2 weeks, they're putting up a bunch of points, over 70 points combined in 2 ball games. And this week in a matchup at the Rams, where they know they got to put points on the board versus that high-powered offense, and it's an indoor game as well, I think Jason Myers will go out there, have a good performance. Number 9, Cam Little of the Jacksonville Jaguars. So now with the Los Angeles Chargers coming into town, they're going to have to put points on the board. And we know Cam Little, unlimited range in preseason, hit a 70-yarder. Week 9, he hit a 68-yarder at the Vegas Raiders to set the all-time record in the regular season. So he's got an unlimited range. He's got an unlimited range as Cam Little. I know accuracy's been a problem, but now 2 weeks in a row with 2 big games, 15 fantasy points in week 9 and at Vegas, and then last week at Houston, he had 13 fantasy points. So this week in a matchup with the Chargers coming in, and they got to put points on the board, I think Little once again can have a good game. Number 10, Jake Bates of the Detroit Lions. So Bates, he's in a high-powered offense, and sometimes he's only limited, obviously, to extra points, where this Lion team could put touchdowns on the board early and often. But last week, Bates, he actually had 9 fantasy points in that ball game at the Washington Commanders. He's got a good boot, and this week at Philadelphia, I believe this will be a high-scoring game between these two teams, and Bates will be trotted out there for a couple field goals and extra points. 11, Cairo Santos of the Chicago Bears. It's been a solid season for Cairo Santos. He's on a high-powered offense of the Chicago Bear team where they're putting points on the board, and that's got a lot to do with scheme an offensive-minded head coach, obviously Ben Johnson, coming over from Detroit as the offensive coordinator. Now to the head coach here. So Cairo Santos, he's been an accurate kicker for many seasons for the Chicago Bear team, even going back to his Kansas City Chief days. And last week, he only had 4 attempts, 3 extra points, and a 34-yarder he hit in that game. So this week indoors in Minnesota, where we could see even more scoring, I believe. I like Santos as a top 12 option, and the 12th and final kicker I'm ranking is Evan McPherson of the Cincinnati Bengals. So this Bengal offense, they're back to putting up elite numbers. Obviously not as elite as it was last season, but pretty close over the last 3 weeks with Joe Flacco in their quarterback. So Flacco's been tossing the football all over the yard. They're putting up huge points as a Cincinnati Bengal team. And this week in a matchup at the Pittsburgh Steelers, where these teams were up and down the field putting a lot of points on the board Thursday night a few weeks ago, I think Evan McPherson's going to get his opportunities, and he's another kicker where he's got long distance, 55, 60 yards isn't a problem for him. Just accuracy has been a problem. But this Steelers team's a bend but don't break type of defense as well, so field goal opportunities I think will be there for McPherson this week. So that's the top 12 kickers I'm ranking for Week 11 of the fantasy football season.